Does your brain ever feel like a browser window with way too many tabs open? It's making your computer run slower, you can't find anything that you need, and at least 2 of them are playing some kind of music and you just can't figure out which ones. Life can leave us feeling like that. It makes it hard to focus on any one thing at any given time because we just have too much going on up there. Well, today we're going to talk about a strategy that we can use to fix this, but you might not like the name of it. It's okay, you do not have to call it that. You can call it any of the alternatives, whether that be something like a mind unwind, or a mental sweep, or a brain download, or whatever else. But really it's just the process of getting all of that mental clutter out of our heads so that we can look at it all objectively, make sense of it, and then move forward with more intention. Sounds great, but how do we actually do it? In its simplest form, brain dumping is just grabbing something to write with, and then putting all of the current thoughts, tasks, ideas, whatever else that's in your head onto that. But given the fact that I've never really found the advice of just do it to be particularly helpful, let's have a look at some tips for how we can brain dump. When I brain dump, I'm trying to make this as unfiltered a process as possible. I want to get anything and everything that I'm thinking onto the page so that it doesn't keep swimming around in my head. This could be something like a task that needs to be done, a random thought that I just had, a half-baked idea, anything else. If we restrict ourselves in terms of what we're letting ourselves write down, we can end up subconsciously second-guessing ourselves, meaning that often things are going to get left up in our heads rather than making their way onto the page. This means that our mental decluttering that we're trying to achieve can end up being less effective. When we're filtering what does or doesn't get written down, this can also get our brains to essentially stall on an idea. You're trying to think of all the things you need to do, but laundry just keeps looping over and over in your mind. Just write down laundry, even if it feels unremarkable, so that then your brain can get to the next thought. You know that feeling you get when you're in a team meeting and offer up an idea, but nobody acknowledges it? It's like, cool, why did I even bother coming along? Filtering during brain dumping can put us in a similar position. Or worse, it can actually get us to be subconsciously berating ourselves for not being able to think of things that are worthy of writing down. It's much better to just give yourself the win and write the thing down. I literally think of it as, good on you, Jess, you had a thought. I'll reward you by putting it down on the list. Doing your brain dumping on paper, away from other distractions, can be really beneficial. Too many a creative idea was lost because somebody went to write it out on their phone, and then they got distracted by a notification, and it pulled their attention elsewhere. Paper isn't like that. It's very forgiving, it's not trying to distract you with notifications, and it's also really flexible in terms of what you can put down on it. You don't actually have to write things down at all. This could be sketches or doodles. Sometimes a half-baked idea is much better as a picture than it is in words. It's not going to make you put down due dates or categories or urgency, and when we're trying to be unfiltered, this can be really helpful. The purpose of the brain dumping exercise here is to get all of our thoughts out of our head onto paper so that we can sort through them, organize them, and move forward with intention. We want to be able to use this information, and your brain dump is only going to be as useful as its ability to fulfill its purpose. Put another way, if you can't read your brain dump after the fact, it's going to be very difficult to make use of any of the information you just collected. While we want to be unfiltered in our brain dumping and use paper where possible for the benefits that it offers, what we really want is to be able to make sense of all this information. There is power in writing things down on paper, but if you're like me, your brain moves way too fast for your hand to keep up. In those instances, I do opt to type things out rather than handwrite, but be mindful of what tool you're using to record this because we don't want it to distract you from getting your thoughts out of your head. You know those moments where you're looking at your task list for the day, thinking, okay, cool, we've got groceries, replying to emails, and an electricity bill. And then you're thinking, oh yeah, the electricity company said something about updating the ways you can pay. I should really set up a direct debit for that. Which gets you to thinking, digital money's kind of strange. Like, I have money, but it's not real money. Well, at least it's more real than cryptocurrency. But what even is cryptocurrency? These brain chains, or our mind playing the word association game, can very quickly take us away from what we were, in theory, supposed to be focusing on. But we can also use this idea of one thought triggering another to help us in our brain dumping process. This is by using a trigger list, or a list of prompts that we can scan over when we're doing a brain dump to bring any ideas, tasks, or thoughts to the front of our mind so that we can then capture them on our brain dumping paper. It can take a minute to set up a list like this though, so if you wanted a good starting point, I do have an example and template that's listed in the description box below, which might help you out. Having a huge amount of mental clutter can be a recipe for the disaster known as side quests, or things that distract us from the main mission. Thankfully, one of the things that we can do to help us focus on the task at hand is using something like a timer, especially a visible one. It may not sound like a super fancy tool, and that's because technically it isn't. Technically speaking, it doesn't even need to be a countdown, it can just be a visible clock. Oftentimes, if you're the type of person who struggles with mental clutter, you may also be the kind of person who struggles with time blindness, or not necessarily noticing the passing of time when you're working on things. Having that visual cue for the passing of time can really just help us focus on what we're supposed to be doing. A timer can also make the task of getting everything out of our heads just a little bit less daunting. While we do want to do a thorough job so that we can achieve the mental clarity feeling that we're aiming for, this can easily lead to us spending ages just writing thought after thought after thought. While you're still practicing your brain dumping process, setting time limits on it can really just help keep it manageable while you're getting more efficient over time. Mental decluttering through brain dumping just helps us get a little bit of distance from our thoughts. Once they're all down on paper, then we can figure out what we want to do with them next. I try to do a brain dump every week as part of my weekly reset process, just so that I can enter the next week feeling cool, calm, and collected. If you wanted to see more about what that process looked like, then this video is the one to check out. So click or tap on that one and I'll see you over there.